Checks in the UAE system, it's considered a method of payment, so relevant to cash.
Herzlich willkommen auf unserem YouTube-Kanal Dubai Recht Klar mit Deria und Omar. Heute wollen wir über geplatzte Schecks und damit verbundenen Risiken sprechen. Und hierzu haben wir wieder unsere Partnerkanzlei eingeladen.
My name is Ahmed Douta. I'm the managing lawyer at Hussein Douta & Partners. We are a firm established in 1997 with a focus on dispute resolution, litigation. We are licensed to appear in the federal courts, the 7 Emirates federal courts, including Abu Dhabi, Dubai and Sharjah.
Good afternoon, my name is Darren Bradshaw. I currently head up the corporate law practice at Hussein Douta. But when I initially qualified way back in the mid-90s, I was primarily an employment lawyer in the United Kingdom.
Thank you very much, Ahmad and Darren, for joining this podcast. Today we are going to discuss a very, very interesting topic, bounced checks, related to real estate, but also in general. As we know, bounced checks are still a major concern in the UAE, particularly also in real estate, because all of the transactions are being done with manager checks and so on in the UAE. What are the legal options for people who receive a check and that check is being then bounced because of insufficient funds, for example, in the UAE?
Well, thank you for pointing this very important topic. In fact, as you said, the checks in the UAE system, it's considered a method of payment. So if you would compare it, it's very relevant to cash and notes, basically. So this is the way the UAE law describes a check. It's a method of payment. So the validity of a check is very crucial and very important. So the trust and the check should be there, and this is the reason why a bounced check is a very serious issue. However, there was recent updates on this particular topic, and the majority of bounced check situations are not anymore under the criminal law generally, and I would specify that by bounced checks for insufficient funds specifically. There are some different reasons which it is still the case that they are still criminalized, and you may be faced with some charges on that. Nevertheless, if we are looking at it from a perspective of the, let's say, the receiver or the counterparty, the applications and the measures to recover this value of the check is still available, and it's even more straightforward at the moment, more efficient. And there is a specific application called enforcement of check, which is done through the courts. It's a very straightforward shortcut of an application for a claimant to approach the court to enforce or to achieve a judgment with the value of the check, which is through the civil court, not the criminal court. And this is a very important thing. Most of the people need to understand the difference between the criminal courts and the civil court when it comes to a check. So as a company, I would say the objective is the ultimate collection of the value of the check, which will be given to them via the civil court, not the criminal court. And today the civil court has introduced some very practical solution for this tool of payment, the checks basically. And after that, you will start the enforcement. The enforcement means that they acquiring about the assets of the counterparty. If he is defaulting and the judgment is given in your favor, you will be able to identify his assets, any bank accounts, to recover the value of the checks ultimately.
Ahmed, you mentioned that bounced checks in general are decriminalized in the UAE, but there are still some scenarios where this is not the case. Can you maybe explain this more in detail?
I'll give you some examples here. This is a very important topic because we have a very special treatment for checks here in the UAE system. And I believe all of the businesses operating here in the region needs to understand this system because it's very different from different systems, specifically when we're talking about checks. What I faced through the year is many misunderstandings on this particular tool, and many people sometimes take it for granted. They signed blank checks and they consider them guarantee checks. Nevertheless, the law do not consider that. It's a little bit, a gray area for many businesses, and it's very important for them to understand. Because, as you said, in practice, as we were chatting just now, in practice, the UAE is very different than the other systems. In reality, companies use checks heavily, and the law have different considerations for the checks other than the European system, perhaps, or international system. As I said, the criminal actions are limited today if there is a fraud element, such as, for example, a change in the signature intentionally, a closed account, and you are aware that this is a closed account, so there is a criminal factor involved here. There is an intentional fraud by giving you the check. So those are examples of situations that they are still facing criminal charges. They are not civil only. They may be facing the risk of being involved in a criminal case.
I have a question here. What if I sign a check, but I do not have sufficient funds, and I know about that? Could that be penalized under the criminal law, or is it also kind of gray area?
I don't prefer to give a general answer on this because every case is different.
Yes, especially in real estate, checks play a significant role also. A bounce check can delay the transaction. What measures can be taken in case of a bounce check related to a property transaction in the UAE?
Talk about real estate specifically and in general. Before receiving the check, if you want to ensure that you don't end up in a, let's say, a challenging situation with a tenant, with a buyer, etc., the minimum level of research you will do against the counterparty will prevent this, basically. This is the most recommended, I would say, practice to ensure the minimum risk in these kind of situations. As I said, due diligence, you can check on the background, you can require a bank statement, for example, and this will give you an indication that this check is really valuable.
Let's assume I have a bounce check received from a supplier. I'm coming to your law firm and saying, Ahmad, please help me, I have a bounce check. What is your first advice for me to do?
Well, as I said, the option of approaching the criminal courts and the police is still available in some limited situations. However, if we are basically dealing with a business and cash flow is essential, I believe the civil application is very attractive for any company because it's a very straightforward, quick application, and eventually you will achieve a very helpful decision, which is the judgment with the amount you are claiming, basically. And you will be able to access the enforcement system of the courts, the execution department, basically, which will help you to recover the amount.
About what time frame are we approximately talking from submitting or filing the application?
Well, let me explain for you, because this is a very new application. It wasn't the case previously. The objective of this application is that it relies on the check itself, not the contracts, not the agreements. So it's called enforcement of checks. By approaching the courts, the only documents you will be taking to the court will be the check, the bounce check, basically.
Yes.
I wouldn't say that the court will give you this decision by default, but by providing the necessary documents for this type of application, you will be given a decision with the amount you are claiming in, I would say, less than a month. However, it's very important to note that such a decision will be subject to an appeal as well, if the counterparty would like to challenge it and he has valid reason to challenge this particular decision. Nevertheless, it's much faster than any other application which was previously adopted, and it allows you to start contacting the execution department in the court and being able to inquire about the assets that you may recover from the counterparty.
Ahmed, one more question from my side. I mean, with regards real estate transactions, we often have the situation that manager checks are issued. Do you see any risk in issuing manager checks? You're laughing, so I believe you have some experience in this. Because everybody thinks if you have a manager check, you're on the safe side. Is this really true or not?
Yes, it is true.
It is true?
It is true, absolutely. Why not? It is true. However, there was a very bizarre situation we have seen recently, but yes, the sure answer is a manager check is a very guaranteed tool, basically, of payment.
But you're right, there are bizarre cases, because I have also currently one. It's actually about a manager check.
I hope it's not the one we have seen.
We'll see
hopefully not. Let's see if you see each other again. it might happen, but it's very rare, right?
I may describe it as an impossible situation or a system error or something like this, because a manager check should be 100% guaranteed tool of payment. Yeah,
because the amount, maybe for the people who are listening, never heard about manager checks. The amount is blocked in the bank system, right?
Yes.
So it's basically a guarantee that the check will not
So I don't
bounce.
think a manager check, it's not a challenge at all, in my experience. But the challenge is achieving a manager check.
Yeah.
Getting a manager check is not, because if you are able to get a manager check from your customer, then you don't have any risk.
Okay.
Probably zero risk, basically. But the risk we are talking about and discussing at the moment are the regular type of checks, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think we had a very insightful session.
Welcome.
About bounce checks and associated risks. Damit sind wir auch wieder am Ende mit diesem Video. Wenn euch das Video gefallen hat, dann liked das Video, schreibt in die Kommentarfunktion und gebt uns einen Daumen nach oben. Wenn ihr Fragen zur Firmengründung habt in Dubai, dann meldet euch gerne bei uns.